Good morning. Thank you, Don. So I'm going to talk to you about energy in the built environment, but we define both of those pretty broadly, so it actually represents 4 chapters in your assessment report. So follow along as we go. The first piece I'm going to talk about is energy, and this data is pretty interesting. Over the last 10 years, the average electricity use by Sarasota County residents is down by 3.8%, and by businesses is down by 2%. So that's good. Our total electric use, because we actually have grown in population, has only gone up by 0.3% in Sarasota County as a result of that efficiency increase. So that's good news. FPL in the back has been able to keep their costs down, so their costs have gone down 10% in those 10 years. And the average household in Sarasota County currently spends $1,226 per year on FPL. So I still think that's a lot. It's not, it's actually less than most utilities in the state, but that's an opportunity for efficiency. So how does that translate into emissions? Florida Power and Light is provided this graphic to us. It tells us where they get their source of energy. They are 66% natural gas, so they are a fairly low, comparatively low emissions utility. The average household in Sarasota County emits 14,000 pounds of CO2 a year. So renewables and efficiency, what are we doing in Sarasota County on those topics? There are 504 solar photovoltaic interconnections in Sarasota County as we at the end of 2014. There has been a significant solar price reduction over the last decade, and over 3,000 households have participated in Sarasota County efficiency programs, and many more have taken part in the FPL programs as well. But incentives that have helped create many of these programs and those progress are inconsistent and are decreasing as well. So here's what you told us in community forums and surveys on energy. The weaknesses and threats, the people are concerned that there's a lack of awareness and political will on energy efficiency and clean energy. There's not an overall plan on energy, an energy plan for our community. There's an opportunity there. And not enough incentives, like I just mentioned. They were concerned about a barrier for our lower income residents. So those that are paying that $1,200 a year probably can't afford it, and we want to really focus on that. And then there are some legislative and utility barriers, some of which were mentioned already. In terms of strengths and opportunities, there was a suggestion for a mandatory energy rating on homes at the point of sale or when they're new. That was an idea. Decreasing solar costs are certainly an opportunity, and that's expected to continue. And there's an economic opportunity in taking advantage of the clean jobs and making sure those clean energy jobs stay here. The solar shading for parking was thought to be a technology that could really bring us forward here locally, and financing solutions like property assessed clean energy and other ideas to make it easier for the return on investment to come quicker. All right. So now I'm going to shift to the built environment. We are second and third for green buildings per capita in Florida Green Building Coalition and U.S. Green Building Council certifications in the state of Florida, which is great. Sarasota County has had a green building incentive since 2005, which we think has contributed to that leadership role. And the county itself has 9 certified facilities. There are also some policies in place that are contributing to sustainability in the horizontal built environment, our landscapes. The Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance and Low Impact Development are 2 that Jennifer mentioned. So what have folks told us on the built environment? We had an event in partnership with USGBC and the realtors, and there we heard about the strengths of our education programs, of the Green Business Partnership, which is recognizing those green builders that are doing great stuff. They talked about the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program and our amazing parks and green spaces in our community. The opportunities that were identified included a policy to encourage more green building and to encourage more energy and water efficiency. There's a lot of potential for zoning and code changes, particularly for accessory dwelling units that people identified, and suggestions to improve public transportation, limit sprawl, and then a little bit more on the landscaping and agriculture opportunities. All right, so I'm going quickly through each because I have 4 to go. So here's the third is transportation. The transportation data locally really echoes what was shared in our keynote, so it was really interesting to hear what's happening nationally. Daily vehicle miles traveled on public roads in Sarasota County has had a really big increase over the last 25 years, but it slowed over the last 10 years, and that's what was reflected nationally as well. So we are driving less in recent years, but it's still a lot more than in the 90s, so it's just going up. In Sarasota County, we have 1,300 miles of sidewalks, 230 miles of bike paths, but the bike paths are mostly in urban areas, and the assessment report identifies some gaps in where those are and opportunities for for increasing infrastructure. And surveys have shown that most of our cyclists are recreational users. They are not, this is not their primary mode of transportation. And in terms of electric vehicles, we had, in 2014, 286 electric vehicles were registered. But remember, they just started to be available in 2010, so it's just exploding, especially here. And we had over 30 charging stations. And there are now a greatly expanded set of public transportation routes through our SCAT system, and there was a 72% increase in passenger trips over the last decade. Really, really impressive. So what has the community told us about transportation? They suggested to put a high priority on multiple modes of transportation. They really want our transportation network to be safe, to be efficient, to be affordable. And when they asked what's important to you in your transportation choices, 75% said efficiency is important, and 82% said sustainability and health are important in our transportation choices. So it may not be reflected in what we're actually choosing to do. Most of us are driving, but they really want it, so we want to help make that possible. There is support for active and healthy lifestyles, and folks really want to have additional multi-use trails and improved transit service and additional support for electric vehicles and infrastructure. All right, my last one is waste. And we have had mandatory recycling in Sarasota County since 1991, and as a result, we are second in Florida for the traditional recycling rate, which means 52% of our total waste gets diverted in some way, which is great. But the state has a goal of 75%. So we still have a ways to go. Our annual waste per capita is now 2.15 tons per person per year, and that's an 85% increase since 2000. So again, we're diverting a lot of waste. We're best in the state, but individually, our waste production is going up. And when you look at the landfill components, what actually goes into the landfill that is not recycled, there's still a lot of opportunity in there. There's paper that could be recycled. There's construction and demolition, that's C&D, and then there's organics, and so there's a lot of opportunity there. Finally, what did the community tell us on waste? And there was a special survey conducted in 2014. And so people said there's strong support for the state's 75% goal and for us helping to achieve it. And half of people surveyed were willing to pay more to achieve that 75% goal. But only 65% are aware that we have mandatory recycling. Right? So they're doing it, but they don't know they have to, which is good. And then there's support for increased education and enforcement to help get us that next level. As for composting, which Dawn mentioned, people were asked whether they were willing to compost. 48% of people were willing to compost in their backyard. They identified some barriers and were thinking about it, but that's a big potential. 71% are willing to compost if it's curbside, if it's like your recycling. They want to do that. But only 39% are willing to pay more. So that's the gap that we've got to try to fill if people really want to move to curbside composting. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tim.